It had been a busy day. Katie had already worked hard at cleaning out a pumpkin. Orbie had already drawn a beautiful face on it. And Mom had baked a beautiful Halloween cake with orange and black icing. Dad, Katie, and Orbie had planned all kinds of wonderful, spooky games for the party that was to start at 6. Katie and Orbie's friends were coming over, and they were going to go out and trick-or-treat together, which was a fabulous idea, except for one thing. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Katie started to itch. As a matter of fact, she started to itch at the back of her neck, then under her arm, and finally on her tummy. Mom wondered if something had gotten into her clothes and asked Katie to take her shirt off so she could check. Orbie wondered what it could be. Mom thought it was maybe a little ant. Orbie thought maybe a giant bug. But that was because Orbie liked to imagine things. Mom was very surprised when she looked at Katie's tummy. So was Orbie. There were spots all over her. Mom looked at the spots carefully. Orbie danced around the room and did 3 cartwheels. Katie was turning into someone like him. But Katie looked a little worried. She loved Orbie, but she really liked looking like herself. The spots made Katie feel like crying. Mom headed for the phone right away and called the doctor. She described the spots as best she could, and the doctor told her that the spots were the chicken pox. When Mom told Katie, Katie was upset. Now I'm going to turn into a chicken? Mom smiled and helped Katie into her pajamas. She explained that Katie wasn't going to turn into Orbie or a chicken. She was just sick, and that was that. Katie scratched her tummy as Mom spoke. Mom grabbed her hand and held it gently. It's important not to scratch chicken pox. If you scratch them, marks might stay in your body after the chicken pox are gone. Katie could just tell that this was going to be tricky. Every single spot in her body wanted to be scratched. In the bathroom, Mom dabbed pink lotion on her spots with a soft cotton ball. Orbie just loved it. There was no doubt in his mind that she was turning into someone just like him. Mom assured Katie that the lotion would wash off, but while it was on, it would help stop the itching. When Katie was all covered, she stood still for a moment. Mom was right. The itchy feeling was starting to go away. Katie felt better and told Mom that she wanted to continue to get ready for the party, and that's when the sad thing happened. Mom touched Katie's arm. She looked right into her eyes and told Katie that the party would have to be canceled because the chicken pox was contagious. Now, of course, Katie and Orbie didn't know what contagious was, but they knew it wasn't good. Mom explained that means the spots would spread to other children if they came near Katie. Well, both Katie and Orbie's hearts fell right down to their toes. They had worked so hard, it just didn't seem fair. Mom told them that sometimes things like this happen. Then she had an idea. They would have the party by themselves. Katie and Orbie didn't think that sounded like much fun. And in truth, it really wasn't. Mom headed for the phone and started calling all the guests. Katie and Orbie sat on a couch and looked at the pumpkin. This was definitely the wrong time to get chicken pox. Orbie looked at his spotted friend. Even the fact that Katie could possibly turn into someone like Orbie wasn't fun anymore if they couldn't show her spots off at the party. Dad could see how sad Katie and Orbie were. Even though he admired their pumpkin and told them that it might possibly be the best one he'd ever seen, the 2 friends just sat there, sad. Dad told them that if they would cheer up, he still had some really silly tricks he could do. Katie just looked at him. Her sad face told him that no matter how silly a trick was, it wasn't going to replace the party. Mom and Dad talked softly in the kitchen, and Katie told Orbie that she was going to take her itchy self up to bed and hide there for a while. Orbie looked out the window and thought about all the fun Halloween would have been. He'd never trick-or-treated, and he'd never dressed up and gone out into the dark night, and, well, he'd never played all the spooky games. I have to tell you that at that moment in Katie's house, nobody was happy. Katie slept for a long time, and when she woke up, it was almost 6 o'clock. Katie dragged herself downstairs. She felt bad that she had ruined Orbie's Halloween. And just then, Orbie, dressed up as a pirate, jumped out at her, burbled that he was afraid she was going to sleep all night. Katie waved her hand at him as she headed for the couch. What would it matter? The whole night was ruined. Just then the doorbell rang. Orbie threw the door open, and in walked Andy. He was dressed as a chef with a big white hat and an apron. Katie told him he wasn't allowed in because she was contagious. Andy walked right over to her as Orbie closed the door. "That's okay," he said. "I've already had the chicken pox. You can only have them once." Andy was there for the party. Katie just stared at Andy. One friend was better than none, and just as she was getting off the couch to get her costume, the doorbell rang. This time it was Yi Ping. She was a pumpkin. Again, Katie told her about the contagious thing, but Yi Ping just smiled. She had already had the chicken pox, too. She caught them from Andy. Katie threw up her hands in delight. Two Friends was fabulous and almost exactly like a party, only smaller. The doorbell rang again. This time, it was Charisse. She was dressed up as a very spooky witch. Katie and Yi Ping giggled at her. She had had the chicken pox, too, from Andy. Charisse wheeled herself into the living room as the doorbell rang again. It was Tom. He was dressed up as a really creepy monster, and Dakota as an Indian chief. It seemed that everybody had had the chicken pox, and that everybody got them from Andy. Andy couldn't help it. The chicken pox were contagious. Katie put on her costume. She was a turtle, a very happy turtle. As Dad tucked Katie into bed that night, she told him, even though she was so sad when it looked like they couldn't have the party, it turned out perfectly. The chicken pox party was almost the best party she ever had, except for the itching. Orbie agreed. And do you know something? I think maybe she was right. It really was.
Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? Long, long ago, pirates used to bury their treasure in strange hiding places, like desert islands. They probably never buried any in your backyard, but it sure is fun looking anyway.